Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Are you looking to improve your land and the environment for your cattle? Today, we'll show you how the Natural Resources Conservation Service can help you enhance your soil, water, and all the natural resources on your operation.
And now, a special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. We all know it's a big job to manage the land and water resources on our cattle operations, especially as these commodities become more limited and valuable. That's where NRCS, the USDA's Natural Resources and Conservation Service, can play an important role. Today, we're going to take a closer look at this valuable agency and how it works with cattle operations all across the country. We start in Virginia, where Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Matt Fleck has a story of a farmer who worked with NRCS to develop a system to improve water quality in his community while also increasing his beef production through better forages.
Virginia has a long history of cattle production on places like the Overhome Farm, where Ronnie Knuckles is the fifth generation on the land. For farmers like Ronnie, nearby waterways and highly populated areas create both challenges and opportunities.
Virginia has challenges based on land use primarily. We're also in the Mid-Atlantic region, so we have lots of population centers, and cattle production exists very closely with those mixed-use areas of suburban, urban, and rural, and we also have lots of surface water in Virginia. So everywhere there's cattle, there's surface water pretty close by too.
The farm here at Ronnie's is located in Goochland County. He's within a mile of the James River, which is a major tributary and major watershed throughout Virginia that empties directly into the Chesapeake Bay. Although we're approximately 2.5 hours from where the James technically enters into the bay, we all understand that all the runoff here from this farm operation ultimately would potentially impact the Chesapeake Bay. So water quality is a big initiative in Virginia on agricultural lands, and Ronnie, like many other livestock producers, recognize that and have taken voluntary actions to exclude their livestock from the streams and ponds, which would have an impact downstream.
When we put in the stream exclusion, when we first considered that, it was springtime, grass was lush, and of course all the best grass is right down next to the creek. And you're looking at a 35-foot strip, and we had a lot of streams. With streams, a bank, and the wooded areas, we were excluding close to 50 acres of the 175 that I started with. So I was concerned, trying to increase my herd size, what's this lost acreage going to do? Can it be compensated?
In addition to fencing out his streams, Ronnie worked with NRCS to implement a rotational grazing plan that uses polywire temporary fencing to maximize the grass available for his cattle.
When we brought in the stream exclusion program and the rotational grazing, we were able to manage the herd. We were able to control where they grazed, how long they grazed.
For Ronnie, as well as most producers who consider doing this stream exclusion and taking out a 35-foot buffer around all these surface waters, that's a big hurdle for anybody to cross. And most of them are concerned that, I'm losing so many acres of pasture land. How am I going to make up for that? And Ronnie took that leap of faith. He trusted his local conservationist. He went ahead and did it. He's increasing utilization of the forages, and he's increasing productivity, the health, vigor of those forages across his pasture acres. So that increased yield and utilization combined more than make up for the small percentage of the pasture land that's now outside in that buffer.
In the context of water quality improvement practices in Virginia, stream fencing, particularly the role of buffers, is important. Buffers are necessary so that we have a sequestration area for nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, and then sediment, so that they don't reach those surface waters and then eventually the Chesapeake Bay. They don't have to be challenges viewed, though, as a reduction in the grazing area, because the focus then really should be, additionally, in water quality improvement, again, back to the upland pasture improvement. And that's where programs that we participate in as beef producers through conservation, cost share, and financial incentives like EQIP particularly give us the opportunity to do both well.
Once the stream buffers and the grazing plan were in place, Ronnie quickly saw improvements to both his pastures and his cattle herd.
To have good cattle, you've got to have good grazing. To have good grazing, you've got to have active, healthy soil. And it all comes back to that level. So I think it's a key component, and I think it's so often it's overlooked that you just don't, you look on top of the ground, you look across grass, you don't look down and think about what it's doing below. In addition to what it did for the soils and the grasses, we gained control of the herd, which I didn't have. But with the better grazing, we saw the quality of the animals improve also.
The value to managing forage resources and creating uniform cattle is very simple. It's the bottom line. The better job you do managing forage resources, the more efficiently you put weight on cattle, and the more uniform cattle are, the better they package and the better they sell.
In fact, Ronnie believes working with NRCS and putting conservation measures in place has made a positive impact on his cattle management and the returns his cattle bring him in the marketplace.
With a different management style and the improved grazing, my weaning weights probably have gone up 100 pounds per animal. And I'm selling them heavier sooner than I was 6-7 years ago. So it's a total package.
Ronnie is a prime example of how he started this conservation project with the exclusion of the waters. But what it has allowed him to do is kind of build the infrastructure of a grazing system. And what that does, it gives him complete management over the livestock that he's raising. So they're more docile. He's around them each day. It's easier to get those cattle up when you got to work them or load them or move them and so forth. But as far as a production benefit, overall the performance of his herd has increased year by year. Just being able to manage them in a system, keeping fresh, nutritious forage in front of them more days of the year, their body condition is excellent. They're rebreeding faster when that time comes. And all of it plays together to improve performance of the livestock in a system that's beneficial to our natural resources.
With clear running streams, healthy grass, and thriving cattle, Ronnie Knuckles is doing his best to carry on the family farming tradition. And he, like other producers across the country, can count on the expertise of the NRCS team to help them better manage their resources and keep them on their land.
The NRCS mission is helping people help the land. So that's what we want to do, is try to make sure that we conserve the natural resources and keep those families out on the farmer ranch.
The partnerships that we have with agencies like NRCS on the federal level down to soil and water districts on the local level are probably even more profound in the Southeast than anywhere. The Southeast has about 40% of the nation's cow herd, and most of those herds average from 2 to 3 dozen head. So it isn't a large beef operator's game to become involved in environmental stewardship. These are programs that are accessible to all of us, and they're perhaps more widely used and most beneficial when they're used on smaller scales, where we have pressure from urban sprawl and we need evidence that agriculture is doing the right thing.
To keep production agriculture viable here in Virginia and across the United States, it's really important to be able to have good stewards like Ronnie, to work with him to open up the farm, to have, whether it be school groups or other producer groups, members of the community, to be able to come in and see how he's managing his herd and how he's managing the natural resources in a way that's beneficial for everybody.
I think the services provided by the Natural Resource Conservation Service is one that's available to everybody. It doesn't matter the size of the farm or where you're located. They're here to serve all of us, and they've played a vital role here. And I would encourage anybody, even if you think you have a good system in place, talk to them, call them, check the website, see what they have to offer, see what you can learn through that cooperation.
Reporting from the Overhome Farm in Goochland County, Virginia, I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
If you have conservation practices you'd like to put in place in your operation, you should start by visiting with your local NRCS office about the technical and financial assistance they can provide. Go to their website, nrcs.usda.gov, to find an office near you. Still ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll head to Utah to see how one ranch is working with NRCS to help prevent the spread of invasive plants and bring back damaged rangelands. We'll be right back.
At Case IH, we believe it's our job to provide you with solutions. That's why our Farmall and Maxim tractors, as well as our tools and attachments, are designed with you in mind. From mowing to baling to loading and more, we're here to help turn your to-dos into to-dones. At Case IH, we'll keep your days running smoothly with equipment that's durable, versatile, and highly efficient. No wonder farmers are more loyal to Case IH than any other brand. Visit your local dealer or go to caseih.com/livestock for more.
Saddle up and make your way to Denver, Colorado for the 2019 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting. This is your chance to stay up to date on beef industry trends and policies. Meet with industry leaders and your fellow cattlemen and women. Plus, you'll get insights on hot topics at the Issues Forums. Mark your calendar for the 2019 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting, July 29th to August 1st in Denver. Details at ncba.org.
Today, we're talking about the Natural Resources Conservation Service and how the agency can help cattle producers improve their land and resources. It's important to remember that conservation planning can also help recover land that's being threatened by invasive species. Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Brian Baxter takes us to a Utah ranch whose partnership with NRCS helped improve their rangeland resources.
Just outside Utah's Zion National Park, brothers Eric and Klein Esplin are carrying on the family heritage of ranching in the rugged environment of Mount Carmel.
My grandpa, Roland, had his homestead, originally homesteaded here. And my grandpa was pretty aggressive in his day, and he's put together pretty much the nucleus of what we have today. There's lots of challenges with cattle ranching in Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is in the southwest part of the state. Very popular area as far as people coming to visit it, but that also is a challenge. We're in a 12-inch precip zone, very rugged country, and I'm very proud that we're able to harvest and put this arid land into production.
In this country, water is what controls everything, and then having feed near the water. The challenge was developing better grass species near the water and developing the waters, getting that piped into areas that would support cattle.
Growing feed near water was especially challenging for the Esplins due to invasive trees that were overtaking their grazing lands. They looked to their local NRCS field office for help in developing a conservation plan that would help reclaim their pastures.
These pinyon and juniper are very invasive. I mean, as you'll notice behind me, there's one little or two little trees right there that are growing, and before long there'll be 3 or 4, and then 4 or 5, and maybe a few more. They can just crowd out anything, any vegetation, any grass. And so it's really kind of a challenge to control them, just to give our grass a chance, grass and other species a chance. But they're very aggressive.
We started with the Esplins over 20 years ago, I believe, in our conservation planning. So we first figured out what are your objectives for this land. They had some really invading juniper, which creates this bare ground, sheet and rill erosion, and what can we do about that? How can we help them? What kind of planting and seeding for range should we do? Recommending those things that would be viable for a very long period of time to help treat the land and heal the land.
Once a plan is in place, it just really helps us because we have expertise is brought in that we don't have access to, just left to our own devices. And they're able to help us to know what sort of treatments are available, what sort of things had ought to be done, and then we can just bring a number of partners to the table that all want to benefit from this type of a treatment. And so we're able to all coordinate on what the desired goal is. So all of that put together moves us forward in getting these things on the ground and established.
With a plan in place, the Esplins quickly began to see many improvements in the overall ecological balance of their rangelands.
The short term, it's been really interesting to see, just even after a year. It was very nice to see that you indeed have these grasses coming in, crested wheatgrass, the intermediate wheatgrass, as well as a bit of clover and other legumes, which are a really important part of the diversity in the mix. And then right here around me, it's been about, I think, a 10-year treatment, and you can see everything popping back. And actually the diversity here is quite great. You also see natives coming back. You've got some of the native brush, which is still okay for great forage and a great working ranch.
Once you can remove those trees, it is just amazing the amount of production that you can get from those areas. Once those trees are gone, get some hybrid grasses in there that will utilize the moisture earlier in the spring, and then they'll hold through the summer into late fall. It just makes for a way to be able to use land that has traditionally never been used in cattle or any type of production like that. And then I think what's interesting also is we'll see the wildlife just follow right into these same areas. So I think we're benefiting the erosion problem, the production, we're helping wildlife. It's just an overall benefit all the way around to treating some of these grounds.
Well, I think this is a great example of how this is going to be sustainable. This is a very sustainable system as we have it right now. It has helped with holding back erosion. It has helped with any kind of water holding capacity. The diversity of the above ground plants also helps the diversity below ground in the soil biology and the soil health. So it's really helped create that whole system and a more holistic approach that's going to be long-term a good thing.
Conservation has long been a proud part of the Esplins' heritage and one they intend to carry on through their partnership with the Natural Resources Conservation Service.
NRCS can help ranchers. Don't be afraid to work with them. They make it better. They're here to work hand in hand with you at making these ranching operations more sustainable and more productive and viable. So give it a whirl if you haven't tried it before, because they will help you. I know in our operation, it's changed the way we do things for the better.
Our relationship with the NRCS has been really beneficial to not only my father's generation, but our generation, and we have worked with them quite extensively. We seem to have a personal relationship with our local people, and that's what I think is where things really benefit. When we're able to know them personally, we can sit down at the table with them personally, we can go over a map and they know our ranch, and we can say, this is an area that we haven't gotten much use out of, but we think there's great potential there. When you have that personal relationship, then that's when good things can happen.
NRCS, of course, wants farmers and ranchers to be successful. It's helping people help the land, and by helping the land, you're helping people. We're a voluntary agency that helps with private landowners across the country, develop conservation plans with our technical assistance and with science-based tools and planning processes. So we actually have most of our people are out in the field and in the counties helping plan and working with ranchers and farmers to do really the good science work. We work on working lands, and that's really important to us to keep those lands sustainable and working with conservation.
It's just neat to just see the land blossom and to just see it improve. I don't know if there's any better feeling in the world to just look out and say, I made that better, and that's going to be better for many generations, and so it's great to be a part of that. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Reporting from Mount Carmel in southwestern Utah, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, see how the Natural Resources Conservation Service is helping a Louisiana rancher protect and improve his land. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Run with us on a John Deere 3E Series tractor and add an attachment or two. Because it's time to turn this land and everything on it, as far as the eye can see, into your land. Nothing runs like a Deere. Run with us. Search John Deere 3E Series for more.
How's your production on pasture? Are profits down? Are weight gains down? What are you going to do about it? Do something cost-effective. Do something that will make a difference. To add the first and proven leader in feed-through hornfly control to your cattle rations, ask for it by name, Alticid IGR.
Today, we're talking about the Natural Resources Conservation Service and how the agency helps cattle producers best use, manage, and protect their resources. Russell Nimitz introduces us to a Louisiana producer who is successfully mixing cattle and woodlands thanks to the help of the NRCS.
When it comes to raising cattle, the weather and the landscape in southwest Louisiana are just a little bit different.
Longleaf, like this site here, is relatively rare on this landscape and has a beautiful herbaceous grassland plant community that's really good to raise cattle on while you're growing timber as well. We started out in 1982 when we purchased 75 acres of a longleaf tract. And we thinned the timber out to the point that sunlight hit the ground, and we put a fence around it and prescribed, burned it, and began to run some cattle. And from there we learned the art and the science of running cattle in the woods.
Dave Daigle has a very unique operation. He does not focus strictly on cattle, and he does not focus strictly on forest production. He's kind of right in the middle. He's getting the best of both worlds. By doing both, he's created a very sustainable production operation where he's getting quality forest products, he's getting quality livestock being produced, and probably putting in less inputs than if he was concentrating on either one.
As a lifelong environmentalist, Dave understood his operation required a different approach to resource management, and he knew he needed a partner to help him. So he reached out to his local NRCS field office in order to build a conservation plan for his farm.
To manage correctly, I knew I needed help. You know, we fight some endangered species. You know, we need help with burning. We needed help with a prescribed grazing plan. Just everything tying it together and getting a consensus on what we need to do out there and then executing what we do. And it's so much of it has been technical assistance, which has come from NRCS.
I met Mr. Daigle in 2009. We started out with a conservation plan. We established a really good working relationship early based on getting water and cross fences to his land units in order to really hone down a grazing plan.
The conservation plan is something we could really hang our hat on. It's concrete, it's there. We go to it, and very, very important for us to get what we need done here. Can't do it alone.
By managing all these values on his farm, he is able to increase his net production. There's very little input but there's a very high net. And that's important in his operation because he doesn't spend all that money up front for inputs. We've used conservation practices through EQIP and the Conservation Stewardship Program to enhance his farm and to give him financial ability to manage the way he needs to manage this place.
NRCS did the first conservation plan for us in about 1982 or so. And then NRCS has done subsequent ones on different tracks over the years. NRCS has come in since then and made some changes. This plan is about 11 years old on this particular track. So it's been an evolution process with NRCS to see the conservation plans get more sophisticated and take more conservation into mind on each track.
Dave is very focused on management. He investigates a lot of different avenues to get him information, and NRCS does play a role in that. So working through that conservation plan, he asks questions, but he listens to all the experts, and then he evaluates how it can work for his place.
Dave's conservation plan aims to work in concert with his unique natural environment, and over time, he's been able to improve his resources and his cattle production using fewer inputs.
Prescribed burning along with grazing is necessary to move these forests forward into a production stance. Production is not Mr. Daigle's objective. It's natural resource management, but he is able to use these cows as a management tool.
And using that plan, we're producing more beef on these sites than we were before. For a number of reasons. Number one, we're using our grass in a way that means healthier grasses, healthier prairie.
Follow natural processes and don't fight Mother Nature, don't fight God. Just mimic what he put into play. You'll work less, you'll produce more, and that's a big key, and less impact on the environment. And another thing that Dave says all the time, it's a philosophy you hear from other true conservationists, and that's leaving the land in a better shape for future generations, and he's certainly doing that. He's taking land that was either under or over managed and mimicking those natural processes, bringing back to where it could be more sustainable and leaving it in better condition than he got it.
Dave appreciates the support he's received from NRCS, not only with conservation planning, but with cost sharing that has helped him put his plan into practice. He also firmly believes it's a partnership that benefits NRCS as well.
Conservation planning, that's the roots of our agency. That's how we provide technical assistance to help people address their objectives and their problems. And over the last few decades, we were fortunate enough to also be able to provide financial assistance to help them. And so by sitting down and going through the conservation planning process, we can develop a schedule of operations to help you meet and achieve your objectives, and then come in with the tools to help you implement that plan, and those tools can be financial assistance.
The EQIP program is very, very important because it's specific to certain conservation practices that we do, like prescribed grazing or prescribed burning, brush control, exotic species, invasive species, encroachment. It helps us on those a great deal.
NRCS is a service to the local agriculture community. We provide conservation planning to improve their operations, and we can even provide money to improve their operations, and that's the most fantastic thing.
Reporting from the longleaf pine savanna of southwest Louisiana, I'm Russell Nimitz for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
If you'd like to stay up to date with what's happening with Cattlemen to Cattlemen, you can find us on Facebook. We keep you posted with information about upcoming shows, farms and ranches we're visiting around the country, and we share legacy photos too. So check us out on Facebook. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, see how NRCS has helped a Nebraska operation stay in business for 4 generations. We'll be right back.
What does it mean to be an American cattleman? It means you have what it takes where it counts, on the inside. At Ritchie, we understand that. It's what's on the inside that defines us. We share the same values: ingenuity, commitment, sense of pride. These are the values that built this country. They're the values that built this company. Ritchie, proud to be a partner to the American cattlemen since 1921.
How do you keep a cattle operation going strong for 4 generations? By doing everything you possibly can to manage and care for the land. Matt Fleck shows us how one Nebraska family is taking advantage of help from the NRCS to implement conservation practices and stay economically viable for the long term.
The Maddox Cattle Company is a family-run cow-calf and yearling operation with deep roots in the sand hills of southwest Nebraska.
The history of our ranch goes back to my great-grandparents, Taylor and Clara Maddox. They came out and homesteaded in 1886. Well, this is the 131st year of our family being in the cattle business, and conservation of our ranch, of our natural resources, is the #1 thing. I'm the 4th generation, my boys are the 5th generation on the ranch. So I think that lends itself to taking a long-term view of conservation. Certainly we've taken a view about being profitable, but the key point there is that conservation and profitability really go hand in hand.
Over the years, the Maddox family has continually innovated to improve their care of the land. They've worked closely with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service and created a detailed grazing plan for their ranch.
For me personally, a grazing plan is essential to proper management. I would be scared to try to graze cows without having a plan written down on paper. Your memory is short term, but if you have your records written down on paper, you can always go back and look at your records and see where you were at and what you were really doing. I wholeheartedly believe in a grazing plan because it keeps us on top of our game. It keeps us accountable for what we have out here.
We often like to think of our conservation plans as outlines for an economic blueprint for a farm. So generally when you're going to do good conservation, particularly in the long haul, you're going to do good economic viability for an operation. So as we talk about making sure we don't overgraze plants on a range, making sure that soil biology helps cycle nutrients and improve that forage productivity, long term we're building in more resilience against drought or even floods, and we're also building in more flexibility as far as decision making on the part of Mr. Maddox and his counterparts and how they want to invest in that increased productivity and improve the economic viability of their operations.
Now we have more water development, more cross fencing, and we have more intensive range use. I think our grass has improved dramatically because of that, and I think we can lay that to the great amount of information and insight that we've gotten from our local NRCS range conservationists and on a national level too, about how they have provided that great technical support and sometimes cost share support that it's allowed us to develop this ranch and help maintain the possibility that we can carry it on into the next generation.
By working with NRCS in developing and implementing a conservation plan, the Maddox Cattle Company has been able to grow their cow numbers and sustainably increase their grass production.
On our grazing plan, each guy has their own set amount of pastures that he has for each herd that allows him about 10 to 11 acres per cow-calf unit. And with doing that, we're able to scrunch our cows down into tight groups into smaller pastures than what you'd see in traditional places. And with that, we were able to come in, hit a pasture rather quickly, graze it quickly, get it down to the level that we'd like to see, use as many of the forages that are there without being detrimental to them, not overgrazing them. And that allows us to have, because we're going to be able to have a longer rest period behind what we're doing, we typically try to build in a 90 to 100 days rest on our pastures. With doing that, we can have all of our plants can have ample rest, but with ample rest, they're able to recover at least to the level where they were before we went in, if not progress a little bit past that stage. In doing so, we can add more numbers to our cows.
We make the cows graze year-round. They graze corn stalks in the wintertime, and then we graze native range in the summertime, along with some other things like cover crops and some irrigated grass, but mainly is a year-round grazing program. And I think it's been 7 or 8 years since we have last fed a cow. And so we think that's one of our unique advantages here in our operation, is that we have that good winter resource of corn stalks, and we try to maximize our use of those corn stalks, and our whole genetic program, our whole system of calving is all geared to minimize our inputs on those cows.
At the Maddox Cattle Company, both the land and the cattle are healthy and thriving. And with these kinds of results, the value of focused conservation planning with help from NRCS is clear.
The benefits of conservation, not only to our clients, to Mr. Maddox and his counterparts, can't be overstated. As we talked about, the fact is it's a partnership, and it has to be something that's really advantageous for our clients in what they want to achieve on their respective operations. At the same time, investing in conservation not only makes his short-term viability better, but it makes the long-term viability better, because we actually are protecting and allowing the land to heal and restore itself.
I think that NRCS has a wealth of knowledge about various different practices, whether it be in farming or in ranching, and on soil conservation, water quality, all of those topics. I think that the Cattlemen bring something to the NRCS in that there is a level of practicality and a great deal of observation that happens by the individual cattle producers, that they provide that feedback to NRCS, which helps them refine and redevelop their programs so that their advice, their recommendations are really tailored to that operation out in the country.
Reporting from Southwest Nebraska, I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Still ahead on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, you'll see a Virginia operation that worked closely with NRCS and ended up winning an Environmental Stewardship Award. We'll be right back.
Say goodbye to your toughest pasture and rangeland weeds for good. Because one product offers season-long control, handles the widest spectrum of broadleaf weeds, and clears the way for increased forage with greater grazing flexibility. So you get more beef per acre at a cost that can't be beat. It's Grazon Next HL herbicide, and if it's in your pastures, plain and simple, weeds won't be.
When you're raising cattle, you might have to solve a dozen problems before you even get through your first cup of coffee. Still, one thing we don't ever have to worry about is in-plant performance.
We use Synvex Twingrass. It's the only true 200-day trim-blown acetate in-plant for grazing steers and heifers.
And you can actually drink this before it gets cold. Whew, that'll put hair on your chest.
Each year, the Environmental Stewardship Award program recognizes the nation's best operations for their stewardship and conservation efforts. Many winning operations have pointed to the Natural Resource Conservation Service as one key partner that helped them achieve their stewardship goals. Let's head to Virginia and meet one winner who knows a thing or two about the benefits of working with NRCS.
In the Shenandoah Valley of Northern Virginia,
Valley View Farms has family history going back more than 100 years. Today, Mike and Susan Phillips work together, caring for the cattle that graze the steep, rolling hills of their 310-acre farm.
I run a cow-calf operation, and I background those calves, meaning once they're weaned, I'll background them into about a 7-8 weight. Everything is a forage base. I wouldn't call myself an intensive rotational grazing, but I'm pretty close to being intensive.
It's a family operation. It's been in Mike's family for several generations, and so we do it ourselves. That's why we went to rotational grazing, in order to be able to do it ourselves and be mostly hands-on with the cattle.
In addition to rotational grazing, Mike uses a mix of no-till seeded forages and cover crops to keep his cattle grazing nearly year-round. And he's passionate about protecting and improving soil health.
The hat that I wear on my head says the soil was meant to be covered. When this land was created, it was covered. It's meant to be covered. I want to follow exactly what the hat says. And I try to preach that to people, keep something on that ground all the time to protect it.
Mike's passion for the soil began with his father, now retired, who had to take over working the farm at age 12 when his own father passed away. From the start, Mike's dad wanted to restore land that had been badly eroded.
And that soil erosion just bothered my father. He hated erosion.
Together, Mike and Susan have spent much of their lives working to stop soil erosion, starting with conservation plans that began when Mike took over the farm more than 35 years ago.
It had erosion problems, and Mike and I stood here and talked about how he might work to slow that erosion down. Seeing what he's done with this since that time, I see that he's reduced erosion drastically from where it was in 1978.
Another major challenge here is controlling water runoff. Not far away is the Shenandoah River, which ultimately leads to the Chesapeake Bay. So Mike has installed watering systems throughout his 22 grazing units and fenced his cattle out of the creeks.
All the sensitive areas, streams, wet areas, sinkholes, they have all been totally excluded, some back since 1986.
Mike has also fenced cattle out of wooded areas, planted trees, and set aside a portion of his land as wildlife and pollinator habitat. He not only cares for his own land and cattle, but also works off the farm as a technician for the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service.
This connection between somebody's asked me, are you a full-time farmer or full-time NRCS? I said, I'm both.
The biggest advantage of Mike having an active, dynamic farm and working with NRCS is that he has credibility with the farmers. The farmers love him. They say, hey, this guy's doing it. He's not just talking about doing it.
Grateful to those mentors who have helped guide him, Mike is committed to sharing his knowledge with others. He's opened Valley View Farms to a wide variety of students, tours, and research projects.
This is my way of repaying my debt to my mentors, is doing what they did for me, given the commodity of time. You can read the books, but this is my classroom right here. And this is where, you can kick the dirt, look at each other face to face.
Whether it's protecting the soil, trying new cover crops, or even restoring their historic bank barn with timber harvested on the farm, Mike and Susan are committed to making Valley View Farms a leading example of the never-ending effort to improve the care of the land.
Our legacy will be that we tried to do things the right way. We feel that these acres here are ours just for a short time, and that we are simply passing through, and God has given us this to take care and to bring it up to a better standard.
My father took it from this level to this level, and they were able to me to take it to this level. And I want the next person that takes here, take it to the higher level. I want to keep pushing it better. Right here, when you protect that ground right there, it'll take care of you. You feed her, she'll feed you.
If you'd like to find out more about the Environmental Stewardship Award winners, see photos and videos, or even learn how to nominate someone for the award, visit the website environmentalstewardship.org. Still ahead, it's time for a visit with our good friend Baxter Black. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The elements can be relentless. Make sure they have respiratory protection to match.
Did you know that Prefert makes over 1,000 different farm, ranch, and rodeo items? And now, thanks to Prefert Direct, it's easier than ever before to get access to every item Prefert makes delivered direct to your local dealer. For more information about Prefert Direct, visit us at prefert.com. Prefert, America's #1 name in farm, ranch, and rodeo.
When a new calf hits the ground, his clock starts ticking. A belly full of colostrum gives him his best odds, but if he doesn't get any, his time starts running out. That's when you grab a bag of Oxford Ag Colostrum in their patented feeding system. Fill them with warm water, shake it to mix, feed it with a tube or nipple, and you are done. No bucket, no bottle, no mess, and right on time. Get yours at oxfordag.com. Costs less than a dead calf.
My mechanic has a lot in common with my mother's doctor. When the steering wheel locked up on my truck, we cajoled it down to George's garage here in town. I left it over the weekend with instructions to please fix it. Well, my sweet mother has had a long relationship with her doctors. They've kept her ticking through the Great Depression, World War II, 4 children and 2 husbands, as more than her share of afflictions struck away at her health. She still has an ongoing schedule of doctor's appointments. Sometimes she has a complaint or the visit is just for a checkup. But no matter the purpose of the visit, it seems the doctors can always find something that's not quite right, that requires an additional test or pill. I have found that I have to be specific when I take my truck to George's. If I said, "If you see anything wrong, just fix it," George could retire to the Bahamas after I paid the bill. The motor has been rebuilt, but the running gear's wearing out. Kind of like Mother. She has a strong heart, but her tie rods are loose. We usually keep power steering fluid, motor oil, a jack, brake fluid, a tow chain, and jumper cable in the cab at all times. Mother has a suitcase full of pills, a sphygmomanometer, blood sugar machine, record diary, oxygen, nitroglycerin, and cell phone close at hand at all times. And we use the pickup usually every day. It's the ranch truck, hauls trash, rocks, gates, wire, dogs, hay bales, protein blocks, railroad ties, and kids hunting. It's got the gooseneck ball, so it makes the trips to the sale barn with the cows and to the pasture with the horses. Just like Mother. She gets up every day, gets dressed, takes her pills, and paints or cooks or visits or goes for a stroll and does her best to make it a good day. Sometimes my old truck is hard to start in the morning, but with a little tender, loving care, it keeps on ticking. Well, I'm on my way up to Mother's to cook breakfast. She's already up. I can see the lights on in the kitchen. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Thanks, Baxter. We always enjoy your segments on our show. And we're back with more right after this. Stay with us.
It started with a man, a plot of land, and a few head of cattle. That man, your great-grandfather. You've got his name and his legacy, too. It's what you fight to live up to and work to leave behind. With innovation, integrity, and passion that runs as deep as yours, we'll be there for your operation, for your future, for you. This is why Merck Animal Health works.
One of the most important things you can do to make sure the beef industry stays sustainable is by joining me and thousands of other cattle producers and becoming a member of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. I've seen firsthand how every day the NCBA staff in Washington, D.C. and in Denver is working to protect the interests of cattle producers all across the country. But they can't do it alone. You can help by becoming a member. Just call 1-866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. Over the years, the Cattlemen and Cattlemen cameras have been there as NRCS personnel work side by side with farmers and ranchers. Let's take a look at some of those great shots with this week's Legacy Photos. Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.